beloveds. We are joined today by three beautiful, amazing, spirit filled children and youth leaders from very different contexts who were a part of the Love of Children cohort. And so I'd like to invite Reverend Janet, Amanda, and Bree to the screen and just say thank you so very much for joining us today. What a gift it is to be in this virtual space with you. As always, I'm going to ask our amazing guests, how is it with your soul today? We'll start with you, Janet.
I am so excited to be here with you all. This is one of my favorite topics of all time. And I am also excited for the weekend. We've got our trunk or treat and outdoor movie coming up, and my sermon is already written. So,
Yes.
yay.
Look at you. I feel like you get the gold ribbon or blue ribbon this week because I haven't met one pastor this week who's anywhere close. So awesome. How about you, Amanda? How's your soul today?
Um, Very good, actually. Very similar to Janet. I'm also excited to be here and talk children's ministry. And we also have our trunk or treat this weekend as well. So a little busy getting that all together, but excited as well. So
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm curious what kind of candies you all have. If they're the full-size bars or the little mini ones, but you know. And Bree, how is your soul today? You're on mute.
Okay. I am also very much looking forward to speaking with you all about children's ministry. This is my first day back from vacation.
Woohoo! Nothing like getting to it.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit disoriented, but you know what? We're here and we're gonna get it done.
Yes, yes. I know. I kept getting these reply messages from you, and I'm like, why is she saying yes to something on her first day back? But I'm so grateful and glad that you did, Bree. Your comrades here on the screen are very much a fan of you as we've had previous conversations. So I'm curious. So I've used this term "love of children." And that you were a member or you're members of this cohort, but I have no idea what that means. And so I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about the Love of Children cohort? And then, of course, how did you come to hear about it? And we'll start with you, Janet.
Sorry, yeah. So it was pretty much a year ago, I received an email from Reverend Dr. Bonnie Bates, who is my conference minister. I'm in the Penn Northeast Conference, and she said, hey, there's this opportunity in Cleveland. It's an imagination lab working with ministry architects, and it's all about faith formation. Is that something you'd be interested in? And I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I went to Cleveland, had an amazing time being with other faith formation folks. And that was when the Love of Children project was really introduced to me, and I really began to understand more about it. At that time, they talked about having the first cohort for 2025 and that there would be an application process. And I was really excited to be able to have been chosen to be part of it. And I don't think anyone really knew what we were going to be doing, except that we were going to be able to get to know one another and learn from one another. And that's basically been the experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. And what part of Pennsylvania are you from again?
So I'm a little outside Philadelphia. I'm in Allentown, like the Billy Joel song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm saying the first time anybody from that Philadelphia area has ever said they've gone to Cleveland and had a good time. I'm just referring to the Eagles and the Browns for all you football fans out there. Yeah. So you said did you say ministry incubators? What was
ministry architects, ministry incubators.
Architects? Yeah. Oh,
I believe they're.
Go ahead.
I think they were formerly ministry architects, but now they call themselves ministry incubators. And they are an amazing group of individuals who go throughout the country to talk to people about how big ideas can become ideas that get hatched into something achievable.
Yes.
And the way that they lead you through, they call it a hatchathon. It's just a beautiful, spirited experience, really. We actually just had a Love of Children hatchathon, I guess almost a month ago now, and beginning of October, and it was an awesome experience.
That is beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was once accused in seminary that I have the big ideas but don't know how to put things into place. And I was like, so it has been my mission. And look at me doing the work now,
There
right?
you
I'm gonna go back
go.
to that professor and be like, haha, I had a hatchathon in my own life and it happened. I love it. How about you, Amanda? Tell me, how'd you hear about it? Tell me a little bit about the cohort.
Yeah, I actually had quite a different experience than Janet. I actually sought out this cohort when I started in my role of director of children's ministries at my church. I was just searching for resources on the UCC website, um, and searching for anything that I could do my job a little bit better. And so I eventually found my way to a newsletter that was sent out after the last General Synod, not this past summer, the one before that, Indianapolis. And I actually, something piqued my interest because it said something about grant money, and I was like, hey, we can use some grant money. So how do I, how do I figure this out? And then the in-person event that Janet was actually at, they had an online event as well happening at the same time. And I believe Bree was online at the same time with me. So that's the first time I met Bree. Um, and that was kind of the event they talked about, the Love of Children cohort. And that is where I found out about it and applied. And it's been really wonderful. It's really what I was looking for. Collaborating with children and youth ministers, getting ideas. I brought back so many different ideas to my congregation, and hoping to bring more ideas back to my conference as well. And yeah, it's been just wonderful getting to know them. We had 2 in-person site visits. One was General Synod, and we got to work the children's programming there, which was amazing. And then about a month ago, we were in Colorado doing a site visit at one of our cohort members' church. We got to see each other there as well. So yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, both you and Reverend Janet have mentioned connection, that, maybe this, as important as it is to hatch these ideas, to get them going, you both seem to have sought out that connection, which I really, really love to hear. So thank you. How about you, Bree?
So I think my experience was similar to Amanda's. I was trying to remember if somebody like emailed me a heads up to look into this, or if I think I just got it through like researching, because I had heard through the grapevine that there was this grant money that was happening, and I was like, what's that? What's happening? So so I think I just found it through researching it. And again, yeah, like Amanda said, I attended that conference online last fall and then applied, and was accepted. And it's been a really great experience. I think one of the ways that one of our leaders, Tyler, has explained this, and I think it's really apt, is that you have this feeling as a faith formation leader that you're like hacking your way through the jungle, trying to make a path and trying to figure things out. And then like if you take a moment and like look up, you'll realize that there's people like 2 feet to either direction also hacking through the jungle. And so if we could work together to create some of these paths, and we're all kind of trying to do very similar things, so if we work together it would be easier. And so I think that's what it has been for me, is an opportunity to meet other people who are trying to clear the same paths, and trying to do the same things, and just expand this network, both in a supportive way and in an idea sharing sort of way. The Hatchathon was great. Got to again expand my network, and really feel like some of these ideas that we have are possible. And the site visits have been amazing. It's just been so great to create these friendships.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a grown-up field trip, right? The grown-up field trip based around youth and young children and babies and all the things. That sounds amazing. And I love that metaphor. If you're just, as you're clearing way, what does it look like to build that connections with others who have already cleared the way, right? And to help uplift each other and to come up with new ideas and stuff like that. I love hearing all of that. I'm really curious about, and I venture to say that our participants watching live or watching later, if you can share a little bit about the young folks within your congregations. I know that I'm in a particular geographic area where there is maybe 2 churches within the region that have youth and then you have, the young at heart. So you have all of the beautiful 80-year-olds going to the front of the church during the children and young at heart, time. And I love it, but also, so I'm curious, what does the young folks, what does it look like in your particular Sunday? And we'll start with Janet.
I'm from a small church, but we are small but mighty. And our kids are so enthusiastic, and it's just wonderful. They come about 10 o'clock and we have a multi-age classroom from preschool through 5th grade, and then 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. We call them the Pathfinders. And so they each use different curriculum. And then we come back together and there's fellowship time before our worship, which begins at 10 o'clock. And children have a variety of opportunities to serve in our church. So they are readers on a Sunday morning, they'll usher, acolyte. We have a space set up in the front of our sanctuary we call this a pray ground, to be able to allow children to be themselves in a worship context. It's not very natural for someone to just sit still and listen when you're 5 years old. And so we have small manipulatives there, coloring options, stuffed toys, reading pillows and books. And we also have those like ribbons like you would dance with. So children are engaged during music that's happening in our worship service. Another opportunity to get them just excited about kind of being where they are and learning to worship. And music, as I think most of us know, is just so core in our soul sometimes to who we are. And so I actually just introduced the ribbons lately, and they were like, when they're like dancing with them, and then they were choosing their own colors, which was really interesting. May I have this one to like hold on to for today? I'm like, yeah. And then, next week, maybe someone else wants pink or whatever. But they're and we have about 7 in confirmation right now. And we're doing confirmation with 2 other local churches who have between 1 and 3 participants. And so I really believe that to be able to have a full experience of trying to figure out who we are in today's world and what it is that we do believe, at least right now, that's a really important time in our lives to be able to take that journey. So that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I reflect off of, talking about music being such a powerful presence in our lives and how it can open up a lot of things, even, for our young folks. My church, where I'm the associate pastor at, we held our 2nd annual Senior Pride Prom this week. And the kids showed up. And the kids showed up with all of their little costumes, and they were dancing. We made sure they got all of their whatever music the kids are listening to nowadays. The DJ was really great at meeting their needs. And then he started going down to playing some of the older music. So they ran off and then came back and wrote a song about how they loved the church. They loved Jesus because this is the first time. And I want to cry, but they wanted to let us know that this is the first time that they felt seen or heard in a church space. And I was like, oh, stop it right now. you know, if nobody else showed up to the prom but those kids, that's all that was needed, right? And so that music, and they had a whole beat to it. They had the DJ, you know, lower the lyrics so they could do their whole TikTok thing. It was beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Janet, for sharing about your context. How about you, Amanda? Let's hear about the young folks in your context.
Yeah, I am the director of children's ministry. We do have a director of youth ministry. So I am primarily for babies through fifth grade. And our Sunday mornings are like a hybrid intergenerational worship. I think a lot of congregations do this, but one of my favorite things about the UCC is everyone does things differently, and it's great to see what other people do. So actually, Janet just reminded me of the ribbons I wanted to get for the playground. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. So we have our kids in our worship service at the beginning. They have a few songs. If there's any special music or anything, they'll be, or special activities like a baptism, they'll be there for that. And then we go down to our like Sunday school kids club, where we do a lesson and then we have a coffee hour. Like Janet's church, we also have a playground. We've had it a little over 2 years. And the cool thing about the cohort and some of the resources that I was able to find, is we had a playground. We had it established for about a year and a half. And then when I heard about, or when I attended that virtual conference last November, Tracy Smith was actually talking about playgrounds and how kind of you can elevate them or how it works best in her experience. And she talked about having actual like manipulatives of things that are actually happening in the service and gave us an idea of where we can get them. They're like Catholic stores, but we have like a little communion set that they can actually respond and like do some pretend play regarding what they're seeing in service. So I was able to kind of take things a little bit change it up a little bit. We had it for so long, and I really, really enjoyed being able to change it. And the kids have really responded. Now we also have like a baby Jesus doll, and sometimes, you know, baby Jesus is just being fed by the chalice, and you know, it kind of depends on what they're doing. But yeah, so we also have a playground, and our church, we have a lot of new families with young kids. So we actually are skewing very young. We have a lot of like babies, toddlers, and preschoolers right now, and like young elementary school. And our upper elementary school, we don't have as many kids right now. So I've had to just in the past year add on a new program that I can engage, like Little Lambs, where I do like a circle time with the babies and toddlers, just to get them engaged as well on our like Sunday night programming as well. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. You know, so what I heard you say is that things were going along a way for a while. You get to come in and you get to evoke change. And I wonder, how is it that the families and the church supported you in that change?
We have had quite a bit of change in the past few years as far as like the playground. Like I think most congregations, it's new and it's different, and we're changing our mindset from, you know, kids should be seen and not heard, or they should be, you know, up in front doing cute things to perform for us, to being a congregation where the kids are actually participating and they're valuable members. Um,
Yeah.
like that saying, the kids are not just our future of a church, they are our church right now.
Yeah.
And so we have been really
Mhm.
shifting our perspective through our whole congregation. And it's taken years. And it's taken strong leadership to do that. So we really are in a really great spot. And I think that we've about doubled our attendance in the children. We are not a big congregation either, like at all. But so this isn't like a huge increase, but it is doubled our attendance to the point where we had to split nursery and babies from K through fifth grade. On Sunday mornings because we had so many kids in the same room. And that was after we started making those changes. Every space in our church is children welcoming, but not necessarily like child centered. So kids can be everywhere. We have Legos in fellowship hall and different, it's very obvious that kids are everywhere. But might not be a child center activity, but they can be there.
Oh, I love that. They are the church right now. Amen. Hallelujah. Like all of it. All of it. Thank you for that, Amanda. Bree, how about you? I'm curious about the young folks in your congregation.
Yeah, so I'm at a larger congregation. I think of us as kind of like a medium large congregation, but I guess technically large for UCC standards. But we have two services on a Sunday morning, and then we have our faith formation hour in the hour in between those two. And
Mhm.
so we also have a children's area in our church. In our church, it just happens to be kind of in the back of the room because that's where the space was to do it. Um, but it is set up with, chairs and kid-sized table and like coloring things, and there's several different kits of toys that they can play with. Some of them are religious church themed. Some of them are just like magnetic building block things. And there's a lot of sensory toys, that kind of thing, but it's a space where there's actually room for the kids to actually run around a little bit. So if if they're getting a little wild, that's okay. And it's also easy if someone gets, like if a baby gets just really distraught, that parents can slip out quietly, but we do pipe the sound from the service into the narthex so that they can still, be part of the service, even if they need to be out there calming an upset child or whatever. But we welcome the noise from children in our worship services. They are there, they are participating. We want them in the service as much as possible because we want them to be steeped in that. And so the we do have a children's sermon, so it's a time when they come forward. After that, they can either just go back to the children's area or wherever they were sitting with their families, or some of them will choose to go up to our childcare room, and that's a choice that they have. Once a month, we do a really intentionally intergenerational service where the kids lead most of it. And we do it the first Sunday of the month, which is the same Sunday that we do communion. So the children are serving communion. They do the intro to, or the invitation to generosity, which is basically them talking about what the church means to them and why it's important to them, why people should give their give their money and resources to the church. They do the gathering litany. They participate in the blessing of the prayer shawls, like they go up and put their hands on the prayer shawls and do that. And we assign one class to that each month. So like one month it'll be our second and third grade class, and the next month it'll be our fourth and fifth grade class, and so on and so forth. And yeah, and so they can choose to write their own gathering litany or use the kind of standard one that we would do for an intergenerational service. We try to have music that has a lot of like actions and stuff available. We pick a word of the day, kind of a la Pee-wee's Playhouse. And then every time that word gets said, they have these flare sticks, which are like sticks with ribbons, but they're only like yay big, but they can like wave those around, or they can, or whatever. And we put crayons in all of the pews that Sunday, and the bulletins have coloring pages printed in them. Because frankly, it's not just the kids who like to fidget during worship. So that's kind of what our Sunday mornings look like. Yeah.
Yeah, so you really actively engage the children in everything, right? It's not just this moment here and go off into another space. Like they are really involved in all of the church things, which I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you all kind of alluded to this, but I'd love for us to go a little bit deeper, which is, what are some of the misconceptions that we might have, like we being the broad we, about children and youth ministry, like the work that it is that you actually do? And we'll start with
Start
Janet.
again. I think what's important is to realize that the reason Sunday school started, which was literally to teach about the Bible and reading and things like that, kids have school now. And if we are looking to create and maintain a generation of people who love God and can share that love with others, we need to have a space where they can learn that. And so it's not just about what they're learning, although I think it's important to learn, because I don't know, theology matters, if we put it that way, because that's part of who we are. People joke, oh, UCC, you utterly confused Christians. Well, I completely reject that. I very much dislike when people say it, because I think we do know who we are, and it's important to teach that. However, that can be taught through our interaction with our kids. So how they feel when they're at church, if they know that they are loved and accepted, and if something is challenging them and they're building relationships with adults who they feel safe around, they can say, you know what, I had a really bad week and here's why. And that is going to translate in each stage of their development and faith formation and growth. And that's how I think we're going to create the church of, not that children aren't the future, but let's face it, there are changes. I wrote my sermon on Reformation Sunday, right? So how is God challenging us to move into the future together? So, oh, you are muted.
It's because I coughed. I didn't want everybody to hear me cough. Yes, thank you for that. Yes, Amanda, thank you for sharing that, Janet. Amanda, what have you found that are some of the myths or misconceptions about your ministry?
I think very similar to what Janet I'll kind of expand, but very similar, that the misconception is that kids need to sit down and have like a lesson about the Bible every week.
Mhm.
Now, it just so happens that we do that at my church. It's part of what we're doing. But um, over like our VBS, I tell my volunteers, and I told my volunteers many times, there was kids that couldn't sit down. I mean, you're there for like 2.5 hours, right? There's kids that can't sit down. They didn't want to attend to the lessons. And so I told them, every single one of them, I was like, I want them to feel safe here, exactly like what Janet said. My goal is that they feel safe. They want to come back. Kids will learn on their own at their own pace. And if they're interested in what's happening, they will lead that and they'll direct that. And if we make them feel safe at church, like they have a community, and if we allow them to have parts and take part in real meaningful worship, where they have ownership of some of their, like similar to what Bree does in her church, if they have opportunities to do that and feel like they are on a level playing field with the adults, and they're going to naturally be curious and want to learn when it's their time. I Somebody told me at General Synod this quote, and I have been trying to find it so I can so I can attribute it to the person, but they said that churches teach children and welcome adults, and Jesus welcomed children and taught adults. Somebody's doing it wrong, and it ain't Jesus. So I can't figure out who, if anybody knows out there in cyberspace, who that quote is attributed to. I love it, but that is really have been my kind of motto over the past year, and really just making them feel like their voice is heard and they have a community and that they're loved.
Yeah, I love that. Here's a great follow-up question, and this is a perfect opportunity. If you are a live viewer of this webinar and you have a question, please use the question and answer feature, which is that dialogue bubble with a question mark in the middle. If you're watching this later and you have a question, please feel free to send me an email, and I will make sure that we get the right people to answer it. But this is a great question that someone just asked. I think is a great follow-up. I don't know why I got to say great 20 times, but here we are. What kind of resources do you like to use when you teach technology to kids? We have a number of young kids under the age of 10 that ask so many questions about the Bible. Theology, not technology. I don't know why I said tech. Look, y'all, we had a whole thing earlier about how I was saying all the wrong words. So, what kind of resources do you use when you teach theology to kids, especially those under 10 that ask a ton of questions about the Bible? And we'll start with either one, whoever wants to jump in, we'll let you go.
I'm happy to go ahead. Sorry, Janet, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, please.
I really we one of the things the reasons that I actually tried to find this cohort was I was looking for a curriculum that aligned with our values as a congregation. I did find a number. We use Illustrated Ministries in the morning sessions, and I think that has a really wonderful like questioning aspect. The questions lead to a lot of wonderful discussions. And a lot of times, I'm actually in seminary right now and I'm still asking my own questions. So, and I tell the kids the same thing. I don't have the answers. I don't think any of us has the answers. And a lot of times I kind of like turn it back on them. Like, why do you think? Why do you think this? And we've had even recent kids that have just felt so safe in our Sunday school and our spaces, you know, that they've very recently asked, I don't know if I believe in God. How do you know if you believe in God? And just the fact that, we talked through it and I think I gave a pretty good answer. But at the same time, I was just really proud that they felt safe enough to ask that question while they were there. And that's my goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Janet.
That's awesome. I think when you're looking at the Bible as one big whole book, it's really important to say there were lots of different writers and these are lots of different books. And one of the big things that I try to reshape that is to say, like, who are you, or, you have lots of brothers and sisters, or think about something happens and there are different newspaper reporters. Everyone has a different view of what happened, but the main thing still happened. And so I think it's really important that from the time that they're young, that we keep saying we take the Bible seriously, but we don't take it literally, because there are things in the Bible that contradict one another. But that doesn't mean it isn't all inspired by God, and that it doesn't breathe God into our own spirits when we dig into those words and try to figure out how they help us today. And so, like, overall, it's about God's love for us. And then as they grow and get into confirmation, obviously you can you pick that apart. And so in each of their spiritual development growth areas, they can understand that on a deeper level and ask questions about it.
That is, and it's a really, it's hard to, I work inside a prison and my ministry in there, and I get a lot of the same questions that our younger kids ask, which are a lot of the questions that I asked in seminary. Like Amanda, like you to say I'm in seminary and I'm still asking these questions. It really, really is difficult to unravel what it is that we were taught and how it constrains us in a lot of ways. And I think, Janet, the way that you presented it is a really good approach. And I know that the Love of Children are working on resources, pardon me, for the larger UCC and anybody else who is interested in children's ministry, because not all Bible verses are made for children, right? But they can be, right? And I think that one of the things that I know that I'm very grateful for in my upbringing is that my parents, we talked after church about what it was that they heard in church versus about what I heard in church. If it was, and because of that, I think I have a different understanding of our scripture that was still debunked when I went to seminary anyway. But I invite, families teaching families how to have conversations with their kids is like really, really important. But that's a whole nother webinar, right? I'm wondering if you can, we just came off of the Nurture the Soul webinar here, did a 3-part series with our Disability Theology and Justice Ministries Board, and that was fantastic. And they hinted around to a lot of things that folks can do, not just for the adults in the congregations, but young folks. And so I'm curious if you can share a little bit about how disability and accessibility play a role in your own ministry. And what have you noticed, what might need to be done, and what are some easy, not easy, but easy things that viewers can walk away with today? And I'm going to start with you, Amanda.
I actually get really excited about this topic because I am neurodivergent. I actually I'm sitting here with a fidget, so you can see me rocking in my chair. So I'm neurodivergent, and I get really excited about supports. One of the first things that I implemented when I took the role that I'm in right now at my church is sensory bags. So every space that children occupy, we have two buildings on our campus, like a gym and the main building. And we have sensory bags, which include fidgets, headphones in every building, very accessible, and in every space. So up in our sanctuary, in our fellowship hall, and in our children's areas, that the kids know, like they just, even neurotypical kids, that sometimes it gets loud when the babies are around, they'll just put them on. So it's very, very normalized. The fidgets, very, very normalized. So we have sensory bags with them in it, but then we also just have like boxes around with fidgets in most of our spaces where people are. And adults even utilize these. I sometimes utilize them. And I recently asked some families in my church, specifically what they appreciated or what we're doing right with this when I wrote an article for a newsletter about this. And 3 families told me that it's just the absolute acceptance that they have for their neurodivergent kids. It's okay if they're up and pacing. It's okay if they don't pay attention. Um, it's okay if they blurt out answers. So it is really like what you're going to do with kids anyway. You're going to radically love them for who they are. That really just that's an extension and just having some supports. One cool thing that we did recently on a Sunday morning with our lesson is I took the kids outside. This was in the summertime. I took the kids outside and we went and walked into our church from our main entrance. And I had them all walk into our church, walk up to where we would go to worship. And I wanted them to think like they had a disability or somebody, multiple disabilities, and see how accessible our church was. And they had wonderful things that I didn't even think of or notice. And they had wonderful feedback for it. And I really, really appreciated that. And then they wrote down all their feedback. And then immediately they presented it to our senior pastor, and which they were very excited about, and he graciously sat and talked to them about it with cookies and coffee. And I really appreciated their view on things that we could do better at, accessibility wise. So sometimes it is just, letting them put that lens and having the kids, walk through as well. So.
All of that is huge. Yeah. And welcome back, Bree. It's so good to have you. Just so you know, we are asking the question about some of the disability and accessibility and how those play a role in your own ministry and what you've noticed. And so I'm going to turn it over to Janet so you have a time to reflect on that. So Janet, yeah, let's talk about disability and accessibility.
I think what's one of the things we have recently talked about is prayer and how to pray, and letting kids understand you don't have to use fancy words and things like that. But also in a worship context, having prayer fidgets, whether it be prayer beads. And so one of the things we're currently working on is creating those things with our children so that they can give us feedback about what's something that would be helpful to them. So we're working on that. And Amanda said a lot, in terms of understanding and education. I think education is the key. I really appreciate the different designations that the National Church has with WISE and ONA, because to me, education is so key. And sometimes I think our kids get it easier than some of our adults, but um, being able to, like, we are a WISE congregation, and for those of you who aren't aware, that stands for welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged for those with mental health and addiction disorders, and addiction, substance use, and those who support them. And so in our effort to always make safe spaces, we have these lunch and learns, and we did not have the very young children participate, but we just did a lunch and learn on suicide awareness and prevention. And we had about 5 youth who were there, and one of them went and signed up for her suicide awareness and prevention team at her school. And that just spoke to my heart and made it so wonderful that she felt safe enough to do that, and encouraged by her church. So yeah, I think education is really the key, helping the adults understand that movement or being on your phone are not signs that someone's not paying attention, that these are what we need. And I myself, I'm always saying, listen, I'm either doodling or taking notes. Otherwise, I don't know how to pay attention, because that's how I process. And saying those things over and over again helps us have acceptance for the way other people process things as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. How about you, Bree?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I talk to my faith formation leaders about is normalization, rather than othering. I think, if we were completely honest with ourselves, everybody has a little bit of neurodiversity going on. It just manifests to different levels, different ways. So one of the things that I encourage my teachers to do is to start with the assumption that everyone is neurodivergent, and everybody is going to need some sort of accommodations to make church or Sunday school or youth group or whatever work well for them. Then it doesn't come as a surprise that you're not expecting to deal with when someone does. And I think just normalizing that and assuming that everybody's going to need accommodations also prepares you for when someone's just having a really bad day and just needs a little bit more understanding that day, needs to be able to just get up and walk out of the room for a little while and, take 5, come back. I think that normalization is a big thing, because then nobody's like, oh, they have these special needs, and so we have this set up. So let's assume that everybody would like to fidget with something. Let's assume that everybody needs to stand up and stretch sometimes. Let's, talk about things in that way. My husband has been a special education teacher for 20 years, and he specializes in like behavior management types of things. And we've just learned that the same things that work for the, exceptional kids also work for everybody else. So just do those things, like set up expectations at the beginning of class that this is what we're going to do today. And here's the pattern that we're going to go through. And we're going to do the same sort of pattern every time we meet. We're going to have a prayer, and then we're going to have a little bit of lesson, and then we're going to have some wiggle time. And then we're going to, this is what to expect. And then those transition moments, which can be the most difficult moments for some kids, are less difficult because they know what's coming. They know what to expect. Where I think it runs into a little bit of a challenge is when we have people whose needs bump into each other's needs. Um, for instance, we have somebody who needs to vocal stim sometimes and is very wiggly and very, very active. And we have somebody else who's super easily distracted, right? And so how do you manage both of those people within the same classroom, that like honoring one person's need to wiggle and make noise and honoring this other person's need to have a more controlled, calm environment. And so we work on negotiating those things like, hey, I get that you need to wiggle. It's making it super hard for me to teach because I have ADHD and I can't do anything except pay attention to the wiggle that's happening over here. So is there a quieter, less distracting wiggle that we can come up with for you so that we both can both function in this space? And so I think that's just, understanding that that's going to be how it works and trusting people about their experiences. And I think the other thing is just kind of in general, we're starting to move in a direction of saying what things are rather than who they're for. Because, for instance, this is not something we have necessarily going on right now, but if you have a stroller parking area in your church, that also ends up being a good walker parking area. So by making things more more accessible for some people, we can end up making them accessible for everybody, just kind of by accident. And so just kind of being aware. And when you learn something, do better. Like, don't scold yourself for not having done it up to that point. Just fix it and move forward. So
yes, I absolutely build it for everybody because you don't know, right? I know I have been advocating just for the opportunity to have us provide closed captioning during the services because I get a lot of people that when I'm sick, I will wear a mask because I don't want to get other people sick. And some folks will come up to me and be like, oh, it was really hard to hear you with the mask on. When I know that I move it closer to my mouth, right? And it's like, oh, did you wear your hearing aids today? No, I forgot them at home.
Yeah.
Let's just make it all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
As someone who wears hearing aids myself,
Yeah.
I understand that. Like, it is both on me and can we work together to figure this out? Like, I have somebody in our church, not even a kid, it's an adult who asked me for this, but she depends a lot on lip reading to understand what's going on. I have a lot of hair. And so I have started making a point of when I go up to do my children's sermon to pull my hair back or make sure it's back behind my shoulders or something so that she can see what I'm saying and can participate in what's going on. So it's just, and sometimes it's just that simple. It's like, I'm going to do this. And
Yeah. I get it. I think we have time for one more question and then we'll go into a benediction. But Jonathan from our audience has said, I'm in a position that I have no children in my church post-pandemic. I'd love to hear the perspectives on how to start from scratch. We have a congregation of around 150 retirees, including many retired teachers. What are some things that you could recommend? Go ahead, Amanda.
We were getting really pandemic hit our church as well, pretty severely. And when we were really in the thick of it, where we didn't have very many kids, there were some Sundays that I would show up to teach Sunday school without my own kids, and no one was there, and I would just sit in the service. Around that time, I read an article that I just saw on social media that talked about, the title was like, you don't have kids in your church, then serve the kids in your community. And that has been something that we really have taken to heart, especially in my ministry. We just do a bunch of community events, especially right now when things are really expensive. Everything you do is really expensive. I have 3 kids. So if we were to do like an Easter bunny brunch or something like that, we're talking about like $100 for a family of 5 or something like that. And that is really inaccessible for some people. So if you have the financial resources, I would recommend doing those community events and making them very low cost or free. Um, so we do a Donuts with Santa event that is free. We accept donations, and most people are very generous. Just buy a bunch of donuts. It's super easy. Decorate some tables. We have a backdrop, and somebody in our congregation plays Santa. We have a Santa suit, and it's those are free Santa pictures. If you guys have children, you know how much those things cost. So we open up to the community. We have some people in our community that they just come to our events. They don't come to church. They may not be religious, but I do know if they were going to come to a church, it's going to be ours. And we're still serving our community. We also do an Easter egg hunt, and we have a bunny suit. Same thing, completely free. The kids love it. We do trunk or treat. We have sensory friendly hours for our trunk or treat. So I would encourage you to really just focus on the community. Put that out to your community, and that'll bring people in. So, and if it doesn't, then you're still focusing on the kids in your community and you're still serving children. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead,
Also,
Janet. Yeah.
what about, like a grandparent and grandchildren, like intergenerational event? Kids love their grandparents. And so if they have an opportunity to be with those grown-ups, and whether it's doing an art project or having a dance, I think that's an opportunity to at least, like Amanda said, like help those families and those children, whether they ultimately like join your church. God didn't put us here to grow big churches. We're here to make disciples and to build community. So,
Yep. Yep. Go ahead, Bree.
So just a couple of quick things. One is we have the best attendance at our church when we are offering special units that are like high value to families. So when we do our OWL units for our elementary kids, it's the Our Whole Lives Human Sexuality Education stuff, those kids show up, and they may not show up the rest of the year. When we do our death and dying class that we've developed, which we do for second, third grade, and 6th and 7th grade on alternating years, and it's like a 6-week class, the families show up and the kids show up because it's providing something that they need and they don't know how to do themselves. They don't know how to do this in an age appropriate way. So it's kind of one of the things, going back to the misconceptions part that I missed is that faith formation is just about memorizing Bible verses or that kind of thing. When what it's really about is helping these kids to form lives and instincts that draw them back to their faith throughout their lives, and showing them how their faith is relevant in their lives. And so we've really worked consciously and intentionally on developing or finding curriculum that focuses on giving these kids skills that they need. So learning about death and dying, because often when that comes up in a kid's life, it's when their families are not equipped to deal with that conversation. If we have that conversation with them at church in an age appropriate way that helps it feel like a natural part of life and that kind of thing, then it takes stress off the families, and they know that. And so they will show up for those kinds of things. So I think it's kind of broadening the understanding of faith formation as something that is giving them a toolkit of skills that they need. And I think the other thing is that the dynamic of kids have changed, especially after the pandemic, in that they don't want to go somewhere unless they already know who's going to be there. It used to be that you could hold a mixer and people would show up and they'd all get to know each other and then you go from there. But now you can't have the party until the kids already know each other and are willing to go be in a space together. And then once you've developed those relationships, then you can throw the party. And so I think it's figuring out how to form those relationships on the front end instead of expecting the program itself to do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I am so blown away. It has been a great hour to spend with you, Bree, Amanda, and Janet. I just have soaked up your wisdom and hope that everyone else has heard, and those who are watching later have heard. And if you have any questions, of course, to let us know. I am glad that you are the first inaugural members of the Love of Children cohort. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us live, and those who are watching at a later time, for crowdsourcing the chat, for sharing your stories about trunk or treat or special education. I loved all the emoticons. The questions were lovely as well. And a huge thank you to our tech and media team for all of them and all of the work they do to help make our live webinars possible and then make them possible in that post-viewing form. We hope that you join us back on Monday, November 3rd. We're taking next week off because, you know, I'm going to be on a sugar high because I'm going to go to every one of y'all's trunk or treat that you shared in the chat. I'm going to need some sleep. So we'll be back on Monday, November 3rd for our next installment of our special series, the Future of Faith series, titled The Sacrament of Interfaith Friendship. We're going to be joined by the amazing Reverend Dr. Lynn Cooper, who is one of the top thought leaders to help us learn how to build meaningful connections across line of differences and to tend to our spirits and communities. We're going to be in a rich conversation to explore the intersections of interfaith friendships and how we do that inner work in between, so that way we can sustain our friendships and our partnerships with those beloveds, all of God's beloved community. And so, Reverend Janet, I turn it over to you to take us out in a benediction. And Amanda, Bree, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you so much to you as well, Ellie. My friends, go now with open and wide hearts to listen deeply, to notice freely, and to love abundantly. May you see in every child, youth, and adult the image of God, creative, courageous, and curious. And may the Spirit who welcomes everyone continue to form us in a community where everyone of every age is known, cherished, and free to be their true self. So friends, go in peace and make room for wonder no matter where you are. Amen.
Siblings in Christ, if you are moved by this conversation, if what's been offered here has helped enhance your ministry or has nurtured your soul for the journey, please consider donating to the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. Your support will help to provide programs like this, which are an essential part of our ministries in the United Church of Christ. Thank you for your support. Be blessed on your journey and know that you are not alone. We are holding you in prayer. Amen.